A warm hello to all of the students. Dumelang, Sawubona, Molo, and Huitahani. So I hope you're all ready. We will share the recording with you. So for now, it will be a lot of information that we will share with you. But you can always go back and listen to the recording, and you're also most welcome to contact me, to reach out to me. Tony has my contact details. So if you have any other questions or uncertainties, please do feel most welcome to reach out, okay? And then I would also like to encourage you, it's very, very important now that you're at this young or this early stage of your career, attend all the workshops that are out there. Remember, for your studies, it's not only the experimental work that you need to understand. There's a whole host of other skills that you need to learn. So when there's a workshop, advertise, try and attend this so that you can learn and grow, because the more skills you have, the easier it will be for you to complete your studies. So now, this specific one that we will be discussing today will be focusing on how to plan your research. Now, there's a lot of different things one needs to think about when you plan your research, but in general, we will be discussing how to choose a research topic, okay, how to formulate a research question and a problem statement, how to conduct a literature review, okay, how to explore the studies that are out there and identify gaps in the research, and how to refine your research focus. Then we'll be also looking not so much in detail, but something that you also need to understand is choosing the methodology for your research. And this is very, very important, because sometimes when you submit your thesis, or if you submit a paper, this is the area where the reviewers can critique you if your methodology is outdated or if it's not robust enough. Remember, when you, especially in the basic sciences, when you do an experiment, you keep a notebook and you date it and you note everything that you do, because it's very important that you describe your experiment in such detail in your thesis and in your paper so that someone else can repeat your experiments. And this is linked to research repeatability, and this is very important, okay? So remember, for your paper, you'll provide a more succinct and shorter version of your methodology, but in the thesis, you have to expand a little bit more on the exact methods that you used for your experiments. For example, if you're in the basic sciences, right? Now, just staying on that point, when you choose your methodology, there's a wide range of research methodologies, and we're not going to go into that much detail about that today, but it is important for you to know in your field what is standard for you to use. If you're in the social sciences, it's more qualitative surveys, that kind of thing. If you're in psychology, you will administer test batteries, and these screening tools you need to know. You need to ask yourself, has these been validated for reliability in the specific population that you are administering to? For example, if you're doing cognitive studies and you're administering a neurocognitive battery, then you need to ask yourself, and you need to consult with your supervisor, has this been validated in that specific population? Also, nowadays, multi and interdisciplinary research is very important. So will you be using a type of mixed method for your research? This is also hot nowadays. So think about how you're going to plan your work. What is your study design? What type of approach will you use? Qualitative, quantitative, and mixed methods. And for you to decide on that, it's very important to consult with your supervisor, and it's very important to read papers all the time. Check what other people in your field are doing. What type of methods are they using? How can you innovate and improve on that? For example, if you are in the basic sciences and you are doing elemental analysis, for example, you want to see if there's toxic elements in your soil sample that you're analyzing, then some people will use, for example, ICP-MS. But now you need to think, is this technique robust enough to analyze, for example, heavy metals as well, such as arsenic or something like that? And then you need to complement that analysis, for example, with other methods such as atomic absorption that is a bit more sensitive for certain elements. So think about it. Okay, you read, okay, people do this, but then you think, okay, how can I combine the things and innovate it and improve the methods that I'm going to report? What else did I wanted to say? So yeah, this is important. So read papers and check what, and when you read papers, check that you read papers in high impact journals. Okay, the journal needs to be good, but then you know also the science will be good. Then when you plan your research, also think about the timeline and the budget. It's very important for you to set up like a plan for yourself on an Excel sheet or using a Gantt chart, or there's some research online apps that you can also use just to plan your timeline so that you can finish in time. Also, check is there funding available for the chemicals and the consumables or any other materials that you need for your research. Ask your supervisor, I need these chemicals. And remember, when you plan your study, don't read the papers and then you make a list of the chemicals and order that early on, because sometimes it takes months for these things to come depending on the company, and this can delay your work. So plan early, make a list of everything you need, and then start early and order this, or ask your supervisor to get you these chemicals, or don't assume always it's available in the lab. Just check on that, because it can delay you. Then if your study needs ethical approval, check with your institution. Of course, UNISA needs ethical approval for all types of studies, but this is particularly important when you're working with humans and animals, and nowadays it's also relevant for when you're working with plants. So check when is the institutional deadline dates for your ethical approval, and you should submit that before you start with your study, especially when you're working with human participants. And then when you're working at hospitals, for example, you also need to get hospital approval for that, but that your supervisor can assist you with. Then you also need to think about how you're going to collect your data and save it. Remember, data can get lost. Laptops can pack up, or you can lose it, or it may just go away and then you don't have data. So always remember to back it up. Keep copies of it. What did I want to say? Yeah. So collect your data, and especially when you are working with, for example, human participants, you need to anonymize their data. So you have to think how you're going to do that. So you have to have one Excel sheet that has your participants' names on it, and one that is, for example, has a code. But then you need to protect it in such a way so that only you and your supervisor can see this. And then you also need to think about how you're going to protect this in such a way that it's only available to the people in your immediate group. So these are a lot of different things to think about. So let's now start with the first item I have on here. So as I said, it's important, attend workshops, attend many of them. It's a very busy life. Doing studies is very hectic. You have to do a lot of different things, but attend the workshop and read books out there. So there's 2 books that I would recommend. This one is available if you Google it. We can also share it with you. It's called Charting a Course for a Successful Research Career. This is available online. It was published by Elsevier, and then there's another one also that is called A PhD is Not Enough. We can send you copies of this. You can just ask us. So read through this. So because there's a lot of different skills you need to acquire to be successful in your careers. So go and read about these books. Then if you're starting with your master's, or if you still don't fully comprehend what research is all about, and this is perfectly normal, remember, sometimes a question may feel, you may feel bad asking this, but don't feel that. If you are uncertain or if you're struggling with something, ask. Okay, it's very important. So now the first thing is you have to understand the phases of your research. And this starts with you do a lot of thinking. You have to do a lot of thinking about which problem am I going to solve? What is out there to be solved? Is there a problem in my community that I can address with research? And for that purpose, you need to understand and review the literature. You know what's out there. You need to know what's out there. And remember, when you're also aiming to publish, you have to aim to publish as part of your M&D studies. This is very good for your career. Then you need to publish something novel. Okay, this is important. So that's why I'm saying always keep checking the literature, because if you do the literature review the first few months, by month 5, there may be another paper that has already been published and that may be similar to your field. So you need to continue to check what has been published so that my stuff, my research that I do is still relevant, is still novel, and still publishable. Okay. Then, as we said, it's very important to plan your study, what methodology, what study design you'll be using, what consumables you need. If you are in psychology, what test batteries will you need? Are these available? All these type of things. How will you collect your samples? If you need to, for example, go and collect a plant in the field that is only growing a certain time of the year, then you need to plan for this. All these things you need to think about. Then also how you will collect your data, save it and manage it. This is important because nowadays also journals request your data files, that should be published open access. So when you summarize your data, make sure that it's summarized in a nice way in an Excel sheet with the columns and the rows nicely, numbered and listed what the specific data is. Is it age? Is it gender or whatever? Or what specific data point that you collect so that it's clear to someone else, because sometimes people can also use your data and do additional studies on it. For example, in medical studies, they get what you call this what is this now? Meta-analysis, systematic reviews and meta-analysis, where they reanalyze medical data just to check the validity and build on the medical research. Then if you're going to recruit participants, you need to check, are these people available? Do you have ethical clearance in place? Sometimes you may plan to collect data from 50 people and then they may not be available, so you need to plan for that. Then you need to think about, how am I going to analyze my data? And this is why it's important to already at the beginning of your studies, go and see the statistician. When we talk about analyzing data, it needs to fit in with coming back to your aims of your research. What is the aims of my work? Because some people just analyze the data and then it not really matches back to your aim of the study. So you need to think, okay, what statistical test am I going to do to compare my data? Am I going to do a t-test to compare two groups of data? Am I going to do multivariate analysis to compare a whole set of data? What confounding factors, for example, do I need to control for? So all of this, you go to the statistician, you say, this is my study, this is my aim, this is what I want out of this. How should I organize and analyze my data? Because also sometimes for these different statistical packages, the data need to be organized differently. So check all of these things. Then already at the beginning, you need to have a journal in mind. Think, where am I going to publish my work? And then you go and read articles in that journal so you get a type of feel for, what this type of journal publish and how I can align my work with it. Or is there other journals out there? Then very important, also think about conferences that you're going to attend, because this is important for your careers. You will network, you'll meet a lot of different people, you will talk to them, maybe you can collaborate with them, maybe you can visit their lab. But ideally, before you present at a conference, you want a published paper. Okay, this is the ideal. This doesn't always happen, but sometimes people can learn about your results at the conference and then they can go with it. So just be careful about that. This is important also to consider, but people do sometimes present also unpublished results, data. What else? Okay, I think that's that about the data and the thinking about the the conferences you want to attend, which ones can you apply for funding to attend that? Okay, so that is just the general thing to think about. What is research, how I need to approach it. But now first, before you even start with your research question and your discipline and you start with your project, some of you may already be in your project, but it's important to understand also the research landscape in your field. It's nowadays very important to do what we call multidisciplinary or transdisciplinary, where you mix the different fields or you collaborate with people from other fields that complement yours. There's also now emphasis on combining, for example, basic or fundamental sciences, where you try and understand the fundamental science behind something and the application of it. Okay, so for example, if you put a certain chemical to a plant, how does it affect its photosynthesis or its gene expression or whatever? And how can you optimize that to apply it in the field to get a better crop? Okay, something like that. Remember, one needs to think about research excellence also. Is your work repeatable? Can someone else repeat it? Do you describe your work in such a way that someone else can repeat it, that it's valid? But this also takes into consideration a whole lot of other things. And this is also, for example, if you are in the medical or psychology or social sciences, whether there's a gender balance in your field. Okay, for example, if you have a study and you're going to analyze only, for example, females, then you need to think and motivate, okay, why am I not including males? Or is the study only pertaining to female population? So you need to think about gender balance. Always very important with your work, you need to advance the knowledge base, right? You want to contribute to the knowledge and advance it. Your work needs to be international competitive. That's why I'm saying read the articles, attend the conferences, see what other people in your field are doing. Nowadays, very important is, does your work have some social benefit? Okay? Think about, is there some problem in your community that you can help out with your research? How can your research actually benefit a problem that you are experiencing in your community, and how can you better that setup with your work? Okay, scientific rigor is very important. Is your work ethically approved? Is it relevant? Do you engage with society? All these things you need to think about. Also the who and the what and the where, okay? All these things is very important to think about. Then also another thing is, do your research align with the sustainable development goals or your country development plan? And very important also, your institutional plans. Now, remember, UNISA has a range of catalytic niche areas. So check with your supervisor whether your work aligns with one or even more of them. That would be very, very good. Now, let's now talk about identifying the research problem. So the normal process that you will go through, you will outline your areas of interest, then you'll choose a specific topic, and for that you will read the literature, or you will talk to your colleagues, or you will get ideas from conferences or seminars in your department. And remember always to ask questions. If you're uncertain about a topic or a field, ask questions about this. Go talk to the speaker. Tell him or her that just gave the seminar, oh, you're very interested in this topic. How can I get involved, or will you supervise me, etc., etc. Then remember, when you have a topic, it shouldn't be too broad. It should be narrow enough, but we'll go into a little bit more detail about that later. And then you eventually identify your question or your problem and the purpose of your study. Now, let's go to where you find your project. Obviously, your supervisor may have projects. Remember, if a project is also funded, you need to align your work with the topic that has been funded, or you can also suggest your own topic. You can have a discussion with your supervisor, or even besides a supervisor, it is also important to have a mentor. And that is someone that can also be your supervisor, or it can be a different person that can help you more with your career development. If you're stressed about something, if you're going through something, it's the go-to person to ask for advice, okay? And that can be your supervisor or a different person, okay? When you think about your topic, also try and think about the specific issue that's being studied. Now, again, let's go back to the topic about where you can find projects. Remember, select something that you are passionate about, okay? Think about how can I improve it? How can I make it better? How can I innovate this? Is the topic appropriate to my discipline, or can it be aligned to multiple disciplines? For example, multidisciplinary research, where you combine, for example, in interdisciplinary research, you will combine the sciences maybe with the social sciences. As you also, before you start, you can also already start identifying a supervisor, go to their website, check what projects they are doing. Maybe they advertise a project that you may be interested in, and then you can approach them. And then eventually, if you have something, you need to narrow it down. For example, if you now decide you're going to study unemployment in India or South Africa or in America, it's a bit too broad, okay? In which sector you need to ask yourself, which group of people? Okay, now let's go back to getting ideas. Okay, so as we mentioned, you can go to your supervisor or you can have your own ideas, but it's important also to conduct the literature review. When you read the paper, don't just read it for information, read it more in depth. Look at the section where they discuss the conclusions, and then you can get a lot of ideas for future research. And the limitations of a study can also give you ideas how you can improve on it. You can even approach the authors. Maybe they will be willing to collaborate with you. Then you ask yourself, what is known about this discipline? How do they approach this problem? Also, the internet news can even give you ideas, interacting with senior colleagues in your department, postdocs. And when you have all of these ideas that you also get from seminars and conferences, etc., or research websites, make like a table for yourself, or take a piece of paper and write down all your ideas, and then you start brainstorming them, or build a type of map for yourself. Okay, now remember, you need to choose something that you are passionate about, because you're going to do this for the next 2-3 years of your life. It may define your job. And you may be working in this, although some people change careers, they change discipline. So if you get started in something, don't really like it, you can always change your career later on in your postdoc, etc. So you can find the golden line in your research career. So now coming back, when you have selected now your topic that you are interested in, then you need to start asking yourself a lot of different questions. You need to ask yourself, what is the significance? Is this important problem in my field? Is it timely? What are the gaps in knowledge? Okay, what is already known? What is not known? Okay, what kind of more research is needed? Should it be done in a different way? And then, is it interesting to you? Is it something that you feel passionate about? Okay, ask yourself different types of questions. Remember to ask the who, what, where, and when. Okay, and then you can also refine your topic through asking these types of questions. Okay, then now it comes to choosing an actual researchable question. There's some things to think about. Okay, so when you set up your questions or your topics for yourself, you can narrow it down a bit. Now remember that researchable questions are focused on facts, not opinion. They are type of now questions, deal with current significant issues. Okay, is it relevant? Okay, can it be used? Is action orientated? So this is some of the things one needs to think about. Then when you think about now actually identifying your problem, to to decide on your research problem, you need to consider the potential researchable questions, as we said. And this needs to be based, again, once more, very important, something you feel passionate about, what is being said in the literature, and also very important, is it feasible? Is the problem, can you finish it in time to get your master's or your PhD? If the problem is too complicated, too difficult, then it can create problems for you, or maybe it's better suited for a PhD study then. Now, again, when you have your topics and your research type of themes ready, now you start asking yourself, will the examining institution standards be met? Okay, does the topic contain issues with clear links to theory, if you're in a specific field? Are the research questions clearly stated? And this is where your supervisors also need to help you to reformulate the research question if it's clear enough. Okay. Will your work provide novelty? Very important. Does it match your career goals? Do you have the skills to do this? Now, if you don't have the skills, it's not a train smash. You can attend research workshops to gain skills in this field. Ask yourself, can you complete the project in time? Will the research still be current when you finish? Is there enough financial support for this in terms of consumables in the lab, also for your own bursaries, etc.? Ask yourself also, is the problem solvable? Is it worth doing? So there's a whole range of questions you have to keep asking yourself when you are busy moving down and focusing on your specific topic. Okay? Again, very, very important. You need to think about novelty. Can it apply to the industry, policy, or your community? In general, what is the societal impact? And what is the feasibility? Is there time available to finish this in time? Is there funding available to finish in time? Then, as we already mentioned, also, depending on your field or your topic, it's important ethical clearance. You need to apply for ethical clearance. If you do what they call type of minimal risk research, for example, if you're doing a retrospective review of, for example, mental health conditions in drug addicts, then this, if you're looking at patient files and you're just collecting the data and doing statistics on that, this is minimal risk research. But clinical trials and other types of research is a bit more, requires more robust ethical approach. Then you need to think also about the risk to the environment, data confidentiality, inclusivity in research. This is very important. And for example, when you're working with chemicals, it's very, very important, especially in the sciences, to read the material safety data sheet of the chemical, because sometimes there's accidents that happen in the lab and people can get seriously, seriously injured. For example, there was a case at us a few years back of someone who worked with sodium, and the person did not read the material safety data sheet and worked with it in open air, and it exploded. Caused very, very severe burns, months of hospitalization. So be very, very careful. When you're working with chemicals in the lab, read the material safety data sheet. If you need to wear gloves, wear gloves. If you need to work laminar flow hood, do that. That's very important. And in general, think about what you're working with. Is will that be a risk to the environment, etc. Then you don't, when you write up your work, you need to check it for plagiarism. Okay, you need to write the words, your research in your own words, and you need to cite it properly. That's very, very important. Also, don't fabricate data. The editors of the journals and the examiners will pick up on this. And there's been many papers that have been retracted because editors saw that figures have been modified or some data has been skewed, and people pick up on this very, very easily. So avoid this. So now, in sum, when you're choosing your topic, think about the Friends principle, the feasibility, the relevance. Is it interesting to you? Is it ethical? Is it narrow enough? What is the discipline that will be involved? Is it across multiple disciplines, multiple related disciplines, etc., etc. Then what else? Then your supervisor as well. Did you select someone that has interest in this field, that has funding for you, etc., etc. Now you have your idea, you have your kind of topic, you know what you're going to do, but now you need to start thinking about compiling your research question. And this is very important. Remember, when you think about a strong research question, it needs to be something that's feasible, something that's original, something that's relevant. Does it contribute to society, for example? That's complex and arguable, that's researchable, that's focused, and that's specific. So think about all these things when you craft your research question. Then you need to also think of the who, what, when, where, and why. You need to think about, for example, if you're working with humans, why are you working with a specific group? Why are you specifically working with a specific gender? Could you balance out the gender representation? If not, why not? Are you working with a certain ethnicity? Why only with this ethnicity? Okay. For example, this could also be when you're testing or you're doing a clinical trial, you're testing a certain medication. Why are you testing it in the specific population group? Is it that their climate or their diet or their setup can influence them, or even their socioeconomic status? So these are all things you need to think about. And you need to think about the what. What are the issues? Are there any unanswered questions? How can I bring novelty with this? Okay. When? Is it a current question? Is it related to a specific period of time? Where's there an event related to this issue? For example, the COVID-19 pandemic. Where am I going to do this? Why am I doing it in this specific geographic location? For example, why am I collecting plants for my study from the specific location? Because maybe the plant grows in this very unique environment where I can maybe obtain unique microbes from the soil that will be nowhere else. So all these things one need to think about. And then the why. Why is it interesting? Okay. So let's look at the do's and don'ts of the research question. A do. So a research question should have no obvious answer. Okay. It should have several, a good research has several possible answers. Okay. It requires data analysis. That is very important. And even more important, it must advance the knowledge. It must be novel. Now, let's look at some examples here when you're starting out compiling your question, okay? So you're interested, for example, femininity in Indian film. Now you do some background search about this, okay? Now you can start grouping your ideas together. You can, for example, look at gender roles for the older woman in Indian film, and then you ask the who, what, when, where question. When are older women shown? What are the gender norms? Do older women even transgress gender norms, etc.? Then you focus on a specific group or place or time. So you try and narrow it down a bit always, okay? Remember what we talked about, don't have a too broad focus because then it becomes a bit fuzzy and unclear. Okay, then you can list the things that you are focused on and eventually you get to your working thesis. Okay, now that we're done with this, so we discussed now how to basically choose a topic, what to take into consideration, and how to compile a good research question. Now, also part of planning your research is choosing a supervisor and a mentor. Now, kind of difference between the two is this can be the same person, but a supervisor can decide the project for you, but a mentor is also someone that you can go to and ask for an interesting topic to study. Now, when you have your PI in mind, ask yourself, does this person have the knowledge to help you to successfully complete the study? Is the timetable worth it? what is the institutional priority? For example, does it match, does the topic that the supervisor is suggesting has some links to more than one catalytic niche area? Is there enough funding available? Is there a co-supervisor that you can also involve, of course? All of these things one needs to think about. Now, when you go to your supervisor, it's important to have regular contact with the supervisor. Now, remember, supervisors are very busy people, so are you. So you need to reach out to them. You need to keep them updated what you are doing. So when you first meet them, have a discussion with them about what are their expectations of you and what is your expectations of them. So ask them, okay, I'm doing a PhD. How many years can I be able to do this? If you are attached to funding, you can only complete in a certain amount of years. Ask, is there a possibility to extend? Is there a possibility for them to help you out with your bursary? Ask about scientific publications. How many papers am I expected to publish? The more, the better. Remember, your name should be first author on the paper, okay? Then you already start asking about what is the thesis going to be like, okay? UNISA, there's also guidelines for the thesis that you can consult. What is the length? Okay, what should the format be? Can I publish before I submit my work? Okay. Can I publish my papers before I submit my thesis? This is very good. Also ask about your thesis defense, how long, that type of thing, and ask them how often would they like to meet with you, which type of deliverables they want you to report on, etc. And then when you write your thesis, don't overwhelm them with information. Give the pieces in sections. For example, you start by doing your literature review, then you send it to them, you ask them for comment. How is my literature review? How can I improve it? Is it good enough? And remember, this will evolve as other papers become available. You'll need to update it. Maybe your experiments doesn't work out. That's not train smash. Then you go back and you revise it, or you change your study, and then you have to go back to update your literature review, etc. So now, as we said, the person that is your supervisor can also mentor you, or it can be a whole different person that provides you direction about, he gives you or she gives you advice about how to achieve success, how to motivate you, how to train you in specific skills that you're not knowledgeable in, general to give you advice and support for your career. So that's very important to have also someone that will be there for you during the career and that you can go to and ask for advices. Now, in general, there's some things you need to remember also as part of planning your research. First author publications is very important. You need to balance your research also with other activities. You need to attend training and workshops, and you need to learn how to communicate well, because remember, communication is very important in your research career. So if there's a workshop on how to present well at a conference, attend that. And remember, there are a lot of stuff out there on the YouTube, on the internet. Learn through various sources, because sometimes one presentation cannot cover everything and people have different experiences that they can pass on. So attend as much as you can. Then talk about your research. Sometimes you get very good ideas if you talk to your peers, even your family and your friends. Some people even outside of your field can provide a whole different perspective. Have a passion for what you do. It's a huge privilege to do a master's and a PhD. So be proud of yourselves and be passionate about what you want to achieve. Okay, be a team player. Engage with your research group. And then very important, sometimes we forget about our mental and our physical health. This is very important to take care of. So eat well, do exercise, and take care of yourself, because if you get ill, there's no going back. So the health is very, very important here. Then sometimes in research, not all things go as planned, right? Don't sit there and feel sorry for yourself, okay? Just move on to the next best thing, okay? Always be convinced that your work is leading to something better. I remember when I was doing my PhD, my stuff didn't work out, and I was thinking, oh my, what am I going to do now? And then I found this really nice paper, and it actually helped me so much. I did a lot of experiments in this field, and eventually it all worked out for me. So sometimes bad things happen for a good reason that redirects you into something else. For example, we did a study on antimicrobial or bacterial activity of nanoparticles. We saw these nanoparticles does nothing, and then we thought, this is. But in actual fact, it can be used for anti-cancer treatment. So there's always a way out of something. Okay, so don't get stuck. Don't procrastinate, move on and find the way out and the solution. Okay. Remember, you need to learn, as I said before, you need to think about how you're going to communicate your work. So think about the paper, and obviously you're going to get criticism of your writing. Now, this is a good thing. Don't see it as negative or putting you down. I remember I wrote my first paper when I was master student, and I thought, wow, this is so good. And then my supervisor said, this is horrible. And looking back, I actually learned a lot from this experience. Just remember that. Take criticism with a good heart and learn to write well. Make a timeline for yourself. Okay, this will guide you and make you keep to that timeline, because sometimes you may think, okay, I still have 3 years left, but time goes by very, very fast. So have a plan for yourself. Okay. What else? Okay. Just believe in yourself again, and don't be scared to raise the bar, as we already said, that we already discussed. Okay, so now let's move on to Gantt chart. So when you start off at the beginning, you want to plan like a timeline for yourself, okay? And you will have in your chart that you can set up using, a different research app or just the Excel sheet or your diary. Any way you want to put up your work packages, your milestones, your deliverables, and your budget. Okay, so you will say, for example, I want to do my literature review in this month. I want to finish my experiments in this one month, and then I'll have 1 month to deal with if things went wrong. And then in the other months, I'll publish and I'll write up my thesis. So you plan all of this out for yourselves. And then you also need to include other things also in your plan. What is your career aspirations? You'll need to think where you see yourself. What do you want to achieve? How many publications you want to deliver? Are you going to apply for funding and fellowships? Check that and put that in your calendar. What other skills you need to learn? Remember, in research, there's a lot of different skills: presentation skills, project management skills, data analysis skills. So list all of this. Ask yourself, okay, I don't have the skills, so what am I going to do to achieve this? Networking also, put in your chart where you're going to go to conferences and stuff like that. Are you going to be involved in, for example, giving tutorials, that kind of stuff, to gain teaching experience? Now, coming back to, I see we only have 15 minutes left, but remember we talked at the beginning about looking at research papers. So this is very important to understand how to look for research papers. Now, searching the literature is very important because you want to avoid duplication, okay? You need to check that your work is still novel, what other people are doing, maybe they be doing the same thing, and how you can improve that, okay? Remember, your work has to be novel to be published. If someone else has already done this, then you can mention it in your paper, for example, when you aim to publish, but you have to highlight how yours different from the previous publication, okay? Then when you search, when you do a literature search, it's important to build up a very good search type of technique, and this will prevent you from duplicating your search strategy. It will save you time, etc. So, for example, when you do a search, write down which search engine you searched, which keywords you used, and the dates also. Remember, you will start obviously with your question, and then you'll take keywords in your question, or you can take keywords from literature that you've read, keywords common in your fields, and then you build the search strings, what we call on that. Now, if you're unsure about, the library should have workshops on compiling research strings, or if you struggle, you can just ask a librarian. And this is by combining words. For example, if you are looking for papers with, for example, heart disease and apples, and then you want papers with both of those terms in, you combine it with the word and. If you want either of those words, you put the or there. But there's a lot of different rules for this type of thing. So building up an effective search strategy is very important. Then you can also sign up for alerts from journals. And check which papers, then the journal can send you an email that this paper has been recently published. You can also look at ResearchGate and these type of websites. You can connect to people, and then you can see if they published recently in your field. Then remember, there's also a whole different load of websites out there to search for information. Now, it's very good to search widely and not only in one, to combine them, because you might find something in one that may not be in the other, okay? Some of these are also specific to certain fields, but as I said, very, very important, because look at this paper here, which is the best search engine. So it's always a good idea to go and search for, if you are in, for example, in biomedicine or something like that, or any other field for that matter, go and search in all the different search engines that are out there, because some of them, you may pick up something that you don't pick up in something else. Then when you build a strategy, as we already said, you will select specific keywords, and this can be in the previous studies that you read. You can use those. You build up the search strings, or you can use synonyms, because sometimes there's synonymous terms in different fields. And then you can also couple your search strategy by using a reference manager, and then you can save these papers. Also, what you can do that's also nice is when you save papers, you can also create like a Google Drive file where you share these papers between you and your supervisor, for example, or you can just keep the papers for yourself. But sometimes it's a good idea also to discuss what you have read with your supervisor so that they can give you advice and help you with that. Now, very important also, when you read a paper, it's not just about looking for paper. You want looking for information. You want to go and read papers because you want to learn how to write well. And if you read papers in good impact journals, you can read how people write. You can get a feel how they write the introduction, how they write the methods, what type of information do they include there. So this is a skill you need to learn, and you need to keep on continually reading papers, because the information out there is continuously being updated. So when you read a paper, you look at the title. How do they formulate a title for this work? Then you can learn. You can learn from that to compile your own title later on. You look at, where are these people? Are they in South Africa? Are they elsewhere? Are they doing the similar work? Read how they formulate an abstract. Okay, how they write an abstract. Remember, abstract is a representation of your paper. So it needs to be a good summary so that someone can get all of the information just out of the abstract. Also, the editors will read the abstract first, and then they need all of the information that summarizes your paper needs to be in there, because sometimes people leave out stuff in the abstract. The abstract is not very good, or it doesn't really well align with their studies. Then the introduction, you read what type of information do they include in the introduction, okay? What studies do they cite, and how they build to their aims and their methods. Remember, your introduction is there to convince the editor that this is good work. I need to publish this. So you need to write it in a very, very good way. And you can learn by reading good papers in good journals. Then you look also at the materials and methods. There you read. Don't just read it to get, understand, okay, I need to use this and this. But you need to read it. What methods are they using? Why are they using this type of method? You can also get ideas about statistical analysis that is being used and why the specific tests are being used. Okay, can I use it for my samples as well? Or should I use a different statistical technique because it doesn't align with my specific data or the manner in which I want to analyze this? So have a look at that. Also have a look at the methods that they use, because not all research is always right. So you need to go and check. Okay, they use this method for their sample. Can I use this method for my sample? Remember the example that I gave about the ICP analysis? So check that. What is the pros and cons of this technique? Does it have limitations? Okay, think about that for my specific sample. Think about all these things. Then think about how they summarize the results. Okay, this is important. You can learn from that. How to compile a good figure. Check how they write this. For example, is the figure legends should always be below and the table legends should always be on top. And remember, figure legends for tables and figures should stand on their own. So even if you don't have the paper, you should still be able to know exactly what's going on in the table and the figure. Also read how they discuss, because many people make huge mistakes in the discussion. They don't discuss their results. They repeat some introduction or they just repeat results, but they don't really discuss what does the result mean? What is the implications of this? Does it support the previous work? Does it reject it, and why? Then just very briefly, this is also something important that you should learn in your planning phases, is how to start writing or how to approach a writing project. For example, you're now going to write up your thesis or your paper. Again, you need to think about your aim of your research is to contribute to the knowledge, okay? There's a lot of thinking that will go into this. You need to sit in a quiet place, think about this, okay? And your communication, remember when you write, keep it brief, keep it accurate, and keep it very clear. Remember, a good researcher, he or she thinks objectively, he researches carefully, he keeps records and notes. This is very important to keep good records and notes, to write concisely and accurately. Someone who considers the background also of the audience. This is also very important, and this links back to how you write your introduction. Because if you're submitting, for example, for a specialist journal that will know your field, then people will know kind of the subject area. But if you're submitting to a multidisciplinary research journal, not all people may be familiar. So then you need to elaborate a little bit more, but not give necessarily a history lesson. You're writing for papers. What I mean, stuff that you're going to publish should always be very clear, accurate, and brief. Okay. Then it's important to use the appropriate format for the specific purpose. For example, it's going to be for a thesis or it's going to be for a paper that you want to submit. And then you want to include citations. This is obvious. Okay, so when you get down to writing, you need to think about, it's important to publish my work because this will advance my career, it will clarify my thinking, and it will help my work reach a broader audience. It will also give me feedback, very important feedback, to better my work, and it will improve my self-worth. I will get promoted. One day, if I'm a lecturer, I will go to professor or something like this. It will help me get research grants one day. And remember, it's unethical not to report findings. Even if you have negative findings, you can still publish this, but then you need to elaborate. For example, this study that we did, the antibacterial work didn't work out, but then we said that based on the results that we got for these particles, it may be used for anti-cancer. Remember also, publishing gives credibility for your work, and it's important for the economic survival of your university, okay? Then there's some other things. Let me just check that. Okay, it's also important for your citation. Now, good writing. Remember, anyone can learn how to write well, but it takes a lot of preparation, a lot of practice, and a lot of patience. When you write, you want to avoid sloppy writing because that transfers to sloppy thinking. And this is not good. The editor will note this, or the person who's reading this will think, no, this person didn't put effort in. Remember also, when you're submitting your work for publication, these journals receive a lot. And yours really need to be, well, nicely written so that the editor can see, wow, this is good work. Let's publish this. Remember, your work needs to be easy to read, interesting and visually appealing in the way you summarize your data. And you want to inform with your work, you want to educate, and you want to motivate. Now, what generally constitutes a good paper? Okay, you need to think about who is the audience you are writing for, what do they know, and what will they want to read, for example. Is the structure right? Is the format that I'm choosing right? For example, there's different journals publish different types of research papers. So choose the format that is right for the message that you want to get across. Okay, if you're going to publish research, then you want to write it in a style of a research paper. Okay, check also your grammar. Then also very important, it's important what, when, how, and with whom you publish. And then let's look a bit at the writing process in general. So what is written without effort is in general read without pleasure. Remember this. And remember, when you plan your research and when you start writing it up eventually in your thesis or in your paper, you will go through different stages. You will first have to get into the mood of writing, and this is normally, going to a quiet place, or some people like putting on music or whatever, and then you just write. Sometimes it's difficult to start, but you just start. You write. Whatever comes in your head, you write, because you can always organize it and, group different information or similar information together and organize the paragraphs, etc., etc. So just start, because you can improve it. But if you don't start, if you keep on putting it off, it becomes more and more stressful, and then you delay yourself. And then eventually, when you have your draft ready, you will revise it, and then eventually you will finish it. It's very important to involve your supervisor in this project, or there's sometimes writing groups. You can create a writing group also in your department that can help you also improve your paper. Now, even before you start your work, you start asking yourself, what is the message? What is the purpose of why I'm writing this? How does my work differ from other papers? Remember, we talked about novelty. This is important. Why is my topic important? What do I want to say? What I want to communicate? You want to ask who's your audience, what impact you want to have. So you ask yourself all of these questions. Then, remember, when you start writing, some people can only work creatively for 1 to 2 hours a day. Some people longer. When you work, you don't want the phone or anything. You want peace and quiet, and you want to focus on the writing, because it is quite an intensive exercise. Then some people write, they just put their thoughts on the paper. And you can do this anyway. As you walk, you can have a notebook or your phone, you put the idea on. Or you can have a separate sheet of paper, a notebook, and you can write, okay, my first paragraph will be about this, etc. Or also, if you, for example, start with writing your literature review, you will have something what we call a skeleton draft. This is like a skeleton of a body. So you will put the names of the headings that you will have for your different sections of your literature review. Or, for example, if you're writing the introduction to your paper, you'll, for example, note, okay, my first paragraph will be on this. Second paragraph will be on this, and then you organize your thoughts into these different paragraphs, and you align your sentences so they're nicely flowing and the reading is quite nice and understandable and brief and succinct. Okay. As we said, don't put off your writing, start, and then as you go along, you will edit it, okay? You also need to think about authorship along the way, who will be co-authors on your paper, the length of the different sections, and that for that purpose, you need to go back to the journal guidelines, and you need to ask, if you want to submit to a specific journal, you go to the journal's website, you download the notes to authors, and then they will give you advice on how long each section should be. The introduction should be, for example, so many words. You have to include maximum of 5 to 6 figures. So read that already at the beginning. So for example, that you don't plan on putting 8 figures when only 6 figures is allowed. Some people start with different sections. Some people start with the introduction. Some others start with the methods because it's fairly easier. Some others start with the tables and the figures, and this will all depend on you. Normally, the abstract of your paper for publication is written last. And remember, when you are busy writing the rough draft, you can use reference manager tools. You check for plagiarism at the end, and you can also use grammar and spelling checking tools. Okay. What else? I see we're almost out of time. Okay, this I think we already discussed briefly about grouping ideas, organizing and clarifying, but we'll go more about that in detail, I think, on this Friday. Okay, so remember, in your writing, it's important to consult with your supervisor or your colleagues or a postdoc so they can help you to revise your work, okay? And this is important because you want to see that you accurately communicate your thoughts, your writing is clear, you have nice, concise sentences, you avoid repetition because sometimes when you don't know what to write, you can sometimes repeat a lot of the same information. If you're using acronyms, always remember to define that. So there's a lot of different things you need to think about in your writing, but you can go through this in your own time. And then if you have any questions, you can let me know. So I think we'll stop here for the time being. We will share the material with you. So if you have questions, you can just you can reach out to us, and I'm sure you will go through this again because this has been a lot of information, but go through this in your own time. And if you have questions, then you can reach out to us. Thank you so much.